let's dive in with intention, whatever that means for you today, Jessamyn, and everyone else, and me too, because I'm a human. My heart's beating here. Like just drop in with intention. Why are you here? And know that your presence here is deeply appreciated. And whenever you're ready, Jessamyn, I just want to invite you to speak wherever you're at today, wherever you're feeling, whatever you're vibing on ritual. I mean, many of us have had the privilege already to read the chapter, but just how are you feeling about ritual right now, particularly post 2020 ritual?
I just, okay. I'm trying not to rush into speech. That is one of my telltale disconnection points, is to rush. First of all, my gratitude for you extends beyond what can be said with words. And I was saying that before we got on, that like, I feel like to even say thank you is belittling the extent of what I mean. And I'm saying that because when I first started practicing yoga at home, I distinctly recall like Googling, because part of my home yoga practice in the beginning was like Googling different postures and just like being like, oh, I'm working on staff pose, Dandasana, or like whatever, literally whatever posture. And I remember referencing your videos, and this was a very long time ago. I can't even remember now. And you've just like always been there, like always in the corner, always there. Like if I need a friend or if I need to like find that kind of connection. And I just can't say thank you enough for that, just that. And then to be able to be here with you discussing this thing that like, literally the whole reason I even wrote this book was to connect with other people. It's really hard. I have a lot of difficulty sometimes connecting with other people. And I feel like I create art as a way of doing that. It makes it easier to do that. So to be able to do that with you feels like just like, yes, like this is a good job. Like I'm grateful. I'm so glad. So that, thank you. Thank you. Ritual. I never valued ritual. I'm not a very orderly person. Like it's really hard for me to remember to do the same thing every single day or even every single week or month. And so to set stable patterns is like, it's an issue. And opening myself up to spiritual practices has made me appreciate ritual in a different way, and the importance of just like touchstones, being able to come back to something. And I thought that all of the practicing that I did before 2017, which was when my first book, Everybody Yoga, came out, I thought that a lot of the practicing before that was preparation for that and preparation for life since then. And I really have retreated to my practice in a different way ever since then, like understanding that it really doesn't matter what it looks like at the end of the day, but you know it when it's not there, whatever the ritual is, whatever, that it will take many different forms, and it has to. But then there was this time where at some point last year where I was like, oh, so all the practice before last year was for that. It was for this year. It was for 2020. And I felt like, and continue to feel as though the ritual in a lot of ways is all that matters. Because I think that when you explore the corners of this spiritual experience, that it can get really bleak in some of those corners, like consistently, over and over again, bleak. And because of how bleak it is, that is where the radiance comes from. That is the shining light also. But the only way to experience that is through the ritual and coming back to it and finding that touchstone. And so I feel like at this point, it is the thing that is, it is fully what is holding me down, and understanding that it takes many forms, and that the absence of it is sometimes more important than the presence. Like not doing it tells me more than doing it. But I also now feel, just from where the curves that my life has taken in 2021, now I feel like everything that I practiced before this time was preparation for right now. And like now I feel like devoted in a completely different way. Like it's just like, it's, I think it has gone beyond the idea. It's gone beyond like, oh yes, it'll be so great to have these rituals. No, it's like, no, this is, it is drinking water. It is, I mean, I think drinking water is probably the most important human thing, ultimately. If you don't drink water, then you'll be done. So I feel like that's the level that we're at this point, personally. And I don't know. I mean, I think that must just be saying that, like, the older I get, the more it feels like it's a necessity. So, and I don't know, who the fuck even knows what's coming next? It's so hard to even, there's no way to even, it's no way to plan for what's coming next, but I know that this is a huge part of my survival.
So I think this is good. And for anyone listening, I think the real beautiful thing about just making sure we talk about these things is, particularly in yoga, and I'm certainly not an expert, but reading Yoke, reading your stories here, and then also relating them to my own. At least when I was in teacher training, and I do want to talk about teacher training if we can get to it a little bit with you, if you're open to that. But we weren't really talking about messiness or chaos or falling off the horse, or, you know, like, it was the discipline of the practice. And I do see yoga as a discipline. I want to actually make that really clear. I don't see it as anything but. Actually, my friend Reggie Hubbard says it really clearly, and I don't want to steal it from him, so I'll credit him. But he's like, yoga is not an activity. It can be, okay, but for him and for me, like, it was a discipline. But I think that nobody really trained me or taught me that the messiness and that chaos and that spiraling out and that falling down, crash land, burst into tears, bleed all over your mat, like the stuff that you talk about very beautifully and openly, not just in the big book, but before this was published. I feel like that I found that always so refreshing and honestly just comforting when I would pick up on that message from you. And yeah, what do you think about that? When I was in training, that just wasn't, oh, I can give you a little fun example. Is I was afraid to bring, I've always drank coffee. I mean, I like tea, but I'm always loved coffee, still do. And I remember like wanting to slam my coffee before going into my teacher training class because I didn't want to have coffee, because coffee was, and granted, I'm 36 and this was when I was 18, 19, 20, but still, like, how sad. I paid good money for that coffee and I didn't even drink all of it because I was afraid of not fitting the bill.
But that attitude, I think, like setting a tone of like what is expected and like this is how we do the thing, that shows up a lot in the yoga, in specifically like in what I think of as like the yoga industrial complex, but especially like in American yoga communities. This is like very common to set standards and be like, this is what it is. And like, you need to be behaving in this way, whether it's the things that you eat or the places that you go or the things that you wear or like whatever the thing is. And I just, at this point, feel like anytime that someone is talking about restrictions like that, that they're not actually talking about yoga. They're talking about whatever they need, whatever makes them feel comfortable, which is understandable because we all have things that make us feel comfortable and we all have our own personal beliefs. But that the reality of the practice is that it's not limited to even what has been written down as yoga. Everything is yoga. This whole experience of life is yoga. So that to put limitations on that has more to do with supremacy than anything else. It's like wanting to find a way to supremacy and hierarchy and wanting to find a way to be better than other people. And I think that because the yoga industrial complex, American yoga, they're so deeply entrenched in supremacy. I think that it just keeps turning over in different forms. And like, I actually, when I look back at my teacher training, I think I was very critical of it. I've been very critical of much of my official training in the way that I think everybody should be critical of everything, but I've been very critical of it. But one thing that I would say is that I feel like at the school that I did my training at, there was a great emphasis on like personal expression and exploration and reading sacred texts for yourself and coming to your own conclusions, even though I think that in a traditional academic environment, it's really hard to bear that out. I think you have to you have to approach it really intentionally, because otherwise it just turns into, again, setting standards that people have to repeat and regurgitate. But I think that at its heart, they were trying to tell us that, like, you know, take what you want, leave the rest, process this for yourself. But I think that desire to be like the group and to do what everyone else does, it surfaces in so many different ways, even when you do say, I'm gonna smoke weed, even though the teacher said not to. So I don't know. I mean, I guess, yes, I feel the same way. And I think that we have to stop trying to boss each other around. It's so intense the way that human beings feel compelled to boss each other around. The power thing, the need to be.
I was literally about to say power.
Literally.
The power and what we have named as power, that's what we need to dismantle, right? Like that's what we're reckoning with, that, like you said, that supremacy, that the things that we've named power.
And when you start talking about cultural appropriation and yoga, there's this like collective experience of like not wanting to talk about it because of fear that you're a part of it. And so much of this experience for me has been accepting that I'm a part of it, accepting the white supremacist that lives inside of me, and seeing that when you're practicing, like, this is all the practice, like all of this, the cultural appropriation is the practice of yoga. All of us having this experience together of recognizing it, like that's our group yoga practice. And like, I think that the hard part about this practice is that it does lead you back to yourself. And I think that as a sentiment feels like really happy and sweet and fun and light, it's like it brings you back to yourself. Yeah, yourself might not be that fun to be around. Like it might not be that happy. It might not, you might be looking at things that you don't want to look at. And that's why I think people appropriate. That's why we appropriate, because you're like, I don't want to I don't want to go back to myself. I want to go to somebody else. I want to do something that feels sweet and nice. But it's always, even in that process of seeking something that seems sweet and nice, you're still being shown yourself. And that means being shown a colonizer, being shown like this, all of this like nasty, well, I mean, call it nasty, but like it's way more complicated than that. And I just feel like because the desire for, and this is just me speaking from a personal space, the desire in my own life to assimilate and to be accepted by other people and to not have to feel like I don't have anywhere to turn other than myself, that has led me to say and do so many things that upon further reflection, I'm like, yeah, maybe I wouldn't have done that or do that. But then I'm reminded that that was the living, that experience, that whole road, that was the yoga, that was the point. The point wasn't to have the right answer or to how would you know the right answer if you didn't get the wrong answer first? Like how would you understand how the equation works if you didn't have to work it through?